Doc, need one. One, Roger.
521.
You started me a card for a parking problem.
And for your 23.
Yes, that's for I'll get a 28 from one truck when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Here's a line truck, Boy Lincoln X-ray 985, should come back up and heading slowly.
So you had 2000 Patrick Spalding.
10-4. If you can just put a little note in on the log that I'm going to be leaving a note on his vehicle advising him to remove it.
Fuck. Fuck.
Welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys so much for coming and watching this video series. Today I have Mel from Empowered Souls. She is a spiritual coach and energy healer, and she also does some awesome doula work. Where are you located, Mel?
I am located in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. So if any of you are coming from Charlotte, North Carolina area and you're looking to have a baby and have it at home in an amazingly spiritual way, I'm sure Mel would be really happy to work with you. I will include all of her information in the link description and the video comments. But again, this series that I have, it ended up being a lot bigger than I had intended. I really only wanted to talk to 2 people, but when I put out my call for speakers, I ended up having so many people that responded. It was unbelievable, and unfortunately, it's a very necessary thing for us to be able to talk about and get out there in the world, so that everyone understands, that it's a bigger problem than we like to admit that it is, and we really need to spend a lot of time working on being mindful and practicing, loving kindness and helping people. And so what I'd really like to do, Mel, is talk to you about your experiences and, what made you go into the work that you're doing, because I'm going to assume that you're probably like me, where I was in, an abusive, so I had a very abusive childhood, and then I ended up in abusive relationships. And now I'm also a healer because I really want to help people, because I know what it feels like to struggle. So I'm going to make a general assumption that you're probably the same way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd really like to, just talk to you a little bit about your experiences and why you are doing what you're doing.
Sure. So my story is not childhood, but it started in high school. So I met my ex-husband my sophomore year of high school, and he was a senior. And you were just like, oh yes, a senior likes me, And so we fell in love, the typical teenage love, and he started grooming me from then. And I didn't know he was grooming me, but over time I started to understand it. And about 7 months into our relationship, I got pregnant with our first child. And here I am, 16 and pregnant. And it became the roller coaster of life. And I had my son, and that was kind of smooth and okay. And he was, the typical gentleman, very, loving father and partner at the time. But then he started to get manipulative because he started to want to date other people, but hold on to me. And continued to groom me as he did his own thing. And then about 15 months later, I got pregnant with baby number 2.
Oh, wow.
So I am 17 and a half and pregnant again with my second child with him. and we do the song and dance again of just parenting and, oh, I love you, this, that, and the other. And then the mental abuse started to happen, and he started to, beat me down even more and start to like really say nobody wanted to be with me. If I was alone, it would be with two kids, and who wants to be with two kids? And, just really beating me down. And the first time he got a little physical with me was when we were out with a family function. And we were, arguing because I wanted to go home, and he grabs me. And I was like, oh no, you're not going to put your hands on me. This is embarrassing. This is a lot. I want to go home. So he took me home, and I kind of like retreated a little bit. But, you go into that honeymoon phase, and it was just, oh, I love you. I love you. I want to be with you. Okay. And so let's see, this was my son was probably about 3.5, and my oldest daughter was probably 2.5, or at that time. I got pregnant. Oh no, let me back up. I got pregnant again when baby number 2 was 4 months old and my son was 2 years old.
Oh,
I was like, I can't do it. And he tried and tried, but we didn't have the child. And he wanted me to have that baby. And I was just like, I can't. I really mentally, I couldn't, because I wanted to go to college, and he really blocked me from going to college. And I had to stay here in Charlotte instead of going away because I was pregnant, and because I had to raise these 2 kids. My parents were curious and nervous about our relationship, and my mom was very like protective of me because she could tell the signs of abuse, but she really couldn't get in there. And I was also, being the stubborn, oh, I love him and he loves me and you don't know anything, the typical young adult who thinks they know everything and their parents are really trying to protect them. My dad did not know how bad it was because he doesn't live here in Charlotte. He lives in New York. So he really didn't know the whole picture. My mom tried to show him the picture, but it wasn't registering. And so we did the song and dance, and we broke up for a little time because I found out he was cheating, of course, on me. And I was just like, I can't do it. We can't do this right now. And so I was starting to live my life and be free. And then we got back together, and I got pregnant with number 3. And that was the straw that was like, I am linked to him forever. And my mom and her cousin were really like, stop having children with him because this is his control. Mm-hmm. This is his, control. And when we talk about domestic violence and intimate partner violence, we don't think about reproductive violence. We don't think about how men, tried to violate women's bodies and but coerce them into having babies with them so that they can continue to be linked into them. Because if you're linked to this person, you're linked to them for years, for the rest of your life, because they're basically, the co-parent. And so that's another way that we don't really register when we talk about it, because it's not, again, like you said, it's not talked about. And it's so many layers to domestic violence and intimate partner violence that we still are unfolding the layers of. And so had baby number 3 and had my tubes tied because I was like, I can't, they were like, no more. We're going to get you out of this, but we need you to not continue to reproduce. And so we had a good like couple of years there. And then we lived with my mother-in-law, and that's where creeps of his childhood abuse started to show up, because he was violent with her. And he's a twin, so they both would be violent towards her. And his twin was even more violent towards his children's mom than my ex-husband. He was more physical, where mine was mental and emotional. So me and her kind of were like linked in arms, because we were we were friends and trying to keep each other safe and our children safe from these two people that
Yeah.
we were in love with, you know. And so that song and dance, we lived with her for about 5 years, and she was protective of him, of course, you know. Oh, my son, no, 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 you know. And then we moved out onto our own finally. We finally got a place and we moved out. And then the ratcheted. It got even more because he turned towards my son and he started to be aggressive with him and be angry with him for nothing because my son was very sensitive. My son would cry, he cries, you know, he lets his emotions show and when he's upset or angry, and he just did not like that because he had to be a man and you know men don't cry. So he would be physical with him. My girls, he would just be a little bit, but it wasn't because they were his girls. And, you know, I'm going to love them and I'm not going to harm them, but I'm going to harm these two other people in the house. And so I'm sorry, my daughter's talking, excuse me. But then we got into the church and that was kind of my hiding place for us. And so we would go, but we would have to be right back. And people would be like, why you gotta run off? And I was like, y'all don't know what's going on at home. And if we were a minute late, I was getting cussed out. Keys were getting taken, you know, phone was getting taken and looked through, you know, who are you with? Why weren't you here at this time? You say you were going to be here at this time and you're a minute late. And, you know, when it came to bills, you know, I would say, this is how much we need for bills. Well, you couldn't get all of the money for bills. And so if you had to ask for my money, it was like, well, what are you doing with your money? Who are you spending your money with? Nobody. Only these kids and me, like just to survive. And so that was the financial abuse. It was, you know, I'm not going to give you all the resources for us to survive because I want to have it to be able to play. And so that went on for about 4 years. And then that was during the time where, you know, we had the plans where they charge you for texting or calling people. And he was calling chat lines, running up our phone bill. I mean, it was $600-700 because he was chatting with people, you know, and he was going and seeing people too. And I'm very protective of my body because of STDs and things like that. And it's really close to home. AIDS is to me and my family. And so I wouldn't want to have sex. And so he would basically force sex on me, you know, because I knew he was cheating, but I didn't want to have sex. And I was, again, being violated intimately with my husband at the time because he wanted to have that control over my body and my will. And, you know, that went on for about a year. And I was like paying the bill. And my mom was like, you got to stop paying this bill because she was on our plan too. And I wanted to keep our phones on because of safety reasons and such. And one day I was just like, you know what? I'm going to the Sprint store. And my mom was like, let's go to the Sprint store and see if I can get us a plan and you dump him. And my kids, my oldest two kids were on our line too. And she was like, I'll talk to your father and see if he will put them on his line because he was paying for the youngest line. So we went and I got a new phone and a new phone number. His line was off. And he went ballistic because now he can't talk to his people. He can't go and do what he wants to do. And I remember it so vividly. I'm sorry, I'm gonna try not to cry.
Okay.
And I was in the bedroom and he was trying to call and he couldn't call. And he was like, well, what are you doing with that phone? I said, well, I got a new phone number. He was like, why? What happened to our old phones? And I was like, I'm not paying the bill anymore. My mom has taken over and, you know, she's paying my phone bill now. Oh, you can get a phone and she couldn't give me a phone? No, she couldn't. And he grabbed me by my hair and pulled me off the bed. And then he started throwing dishes at me. And I was making sure the kids were in the room. And so my son because he was the big bad wolf over my son. He took my son's phone because at that time my son had already gotten his new phone and took it so that he could, do his thing. And he was also jealous of my son because my son is much taller than him now. At that time, he was 13 and he was already towering him. He was 6'1" at the time. My ex-husband is 6 feet. My son has big feet. He does it. And my ex-husband would take my son's clothes.
Oh, geez.
He would take his shoes because my father has a contract with Nike. So any shoe my son wants, he just sends them to him. So my son had like a Foot Locker looking room. But he got angry because my son was at a 10 and a half now, 11, and he couldn't fit him anymore. And I remember one time my son came home from New York because he went to visit, and he ransacked his bag before I got home of what he wanted. Who does that? Right. Who does that to your own flesh and blood? But because you feel entitled, this is what you do. And so that day he threw the dishes and he left with my son's phone. And I called my dad and I told him, I said, turn Jalen's phone off, my son's. I said, turn his phone off for right now until I can get it back. And he was like, what's going on? And I finally broke down and told him. And he was like, I did not even know. And I said, well, that I couldn't tell you for safety. And my dad was like, you need to leave him. And I was fearful because where we were staying, I was just a occupant, not the leaseholder. And my dad was like, they're not going to put you out on the street. You have 3 kids. He's a man. He can go. You're on there. So it's not like you're not on the lease. Mm-hmm. You're just not the person responsible for the lease. You can pay the bill there, but he needs to go. And so I was so fearful that we weren't going to have anywhere to go, because I didn't want to move back in with my mom, but if I could, I could. But the next day, mom took me the next day I went to my job. And it's funny because my boss at the time shares the same birthday with my dad. And so it was like I was working for my dad at work, And I told him what was going on at home. And he said, no, I need you to go file your restraining order. I'll make sure that the security here knows at the hospital, because I worked at the hospital, he's not allowed to come into here. If he comes, we'll call the police because he can't come here to see you. And I was so grateful because I was nervous, and so I went and filed my protection order. And it took them a day to serve it, and we were home, and they brought out a male and a female sheriff, so she could be with me and they could do him. And my kids were there, and I was so nervous because they knew what happened. And I was telling them, Daddy's got to go. Like, he can't stay here anymore. And he was just, the love mask had fallen, and God had taken it off of him. So I could really see this angry, hurt, abusive man for who he was, and that I no longer needed to be with him. It was time for me to be free of him. And I was so, so nervous the whole time because he had a gun. And they asked him for it. And he was livid. And I just was like praying the whole time because I was washing dishes, and I was praying that he wouldn't use it on me, because I felt it. I saw it in his face that if they did not apprehend it, you would have saw me on the blip on the TV, because that's what he was going to do to me. And he the whole time was like, she needs to go. She has places to go. This is my house. And I was just thinking, you want to put your wife and children out on the street because of ego. And it was just like the mask, like I say, it was done, and I was done. I was so free and done at that moment because I saw him for who he was. It was no longer that teenage me that fell in love with him in high school. It was the, 30-year-old me that was over it and tired of having to run home and miss hanging out with my church friends or miss being at family functions because I have to be right home at this time. And so he was removed and we went to court. And that was the icing on the cake because, of course, my mom came and his mom came. And it didn't hurt about him, but it hurted about her because she sat up there and was like, I don't know where he's getting this from. I don't know. I've never seen him. And I was just like, are you serious? Are you serious? To right now. I would never protect my kids from being harmful to their partner. That's just nothing I would do. And as much as I love them, it's something I would just not stand by and allow myself to just okay. And my mother-in-law was just blatantly like, I don't know where he gets it from. And she started talking about some of his childhood stuff. And I was just so devastated because I just thought the judge was gonna just believe it and not give me my full order. But the judge granted me my order. And when I got my copy, the judge wrote, defendant has been around violence and abuse his whole life. It was from childhood until today. So what protection she was trying to do, it didn't work because the judge saw through the bull, and I was free. And I was nervous because he still could drive by and check on us and stuff like that, but he would never stop by. And then as far as the kids is concerned, I would drop him off at his mom's house and go. Like he would pick him. I would drop him like 30 minutes and he would come and get him. So I tried not to ever be seen by him. And he tried to like manipulate me. Oh, let me take you to dinner. And I was just like, I can't. And so we did that song and dance with them. And then he finally stopped picking them up. Because I wasn't going to be seen and he couldn't see me. So what's the purpose of getting my children? And so that was it. And then I felt it was like about 4 to 5 years later, I felt it was like, it's time for the divorce. Because I was tired of being linked to that last name. And I was starting to really become Mel, who you see today, because I was healing. I left the church because the church was toxic. Oh, let me back up. The church can be toxic too, because the pastor kept telling me to be with my husband, to do more things to love on your husband. Not your husband is abusive crap to you, but putting the onus on me, the wife. And so the church sometimes can reinforce the violence. Right. And I want people to know, if you're in this state and you go to church and the pastor is telling you to stay, that's not the pastor for you. Right. Because my boss at the time was a chaplain. He was a pastor. He was like, none of my parishioners I would encourage to stay in something like this. He was like, you need to leave that abusive church because it's not for your spiritual growth. And so about 5, he left me alone, left the children alone. He would see them here and there, but it wasn't a lot. And I finally said, the kids are now graduating high school. It's time for me to divorce him. And that was an easy ordeal. I thought it was going to be hard, but went and did it. And he couldn't really have any grounds to stand on because, I'm sorry, my alerts are going off. Sorry. Let me see if I can turn it off. There we go. He didn't have any grounds to stand on, so he left me alone. And so, because my kids are old at this time and they have their own phones, you have direct link to talk to them. So you have and so he never got to see me. except for when we went to, like, I didn't even see him at my kid's graduation. He didn't show up to one. He showed up to 2 of them out of the 3. Because that's the parent he is. Now we're grandparents because my son has a son.
Okay.
And so because of the space and time, I still don't communicate with him. I act like he's just a piece of the wall, he's just a furniture or anything. And it still angers him because, again, I'm living free. He has no control over me. And we have to share and still work together a little bit because we are grandparents. But I leave that up to my son to coordinate versus me. Because I get my grandson when I want to get my grandson, and he does too. And so we still don't see each other. And I like that. But it was crazy because before we moved, he started dating someone in our old neighborhood. And I cried for 2 days straight out of fear that he would come to our house. Because literally I would have to drive past the house to get to my house. And he would be outside looking. Who does that? All these years later, you're still trying to figure out how to control somebody. Who does that? But I'm no longer there and I'm free and he doesn't see me. And so do that process, like I said, when I was thinking of my divorce, I started to unpack where the need to be in love with somebody abusive came from. And I had a heart-to-heart with my dad and told him, because a couple of months later after we split, he asked me about, like, how did you get in with him? What is this and what is that? And I told him, I said, well, Dad, he was the first man that told me he loves me. And this sent me into the spiral. And I said, you never told me you loved me. You only give. You give. But emotionally, that emotional support that I need, you never gave into me. And so this is what transpired, because I felt like this person really loves me because they showed it to me and they told it to me. And so my dad finally, he heard me. And from that day forward, he told not only me, but my daughters he loves us, because he recognized words are powerful.
Yeah.
And you can do for people, but you also have to speak it to people, because sometimes it's not about the actions, it's about the words that goes along with the actions. And so I healed and released. And while I was at that job, I learned about Reiki. And that was part of my awakening because I started to get guided from my ancestors and the angels more. I started to see more because my intuition was really open, like the box had opened. And I realized he was blocking that filter for me, because I would get information, but it wasn't registering. And so I started having more dreams about the work that I was being called to do and that I came here to do. And I got Reiki because I was starting to get migraines. I'm starting to get older, and migraines is something that happens in my family in the 30s and 40s. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I didn't have a pop-up pill, and it takes this migraine from a 10,000 into a 2. I love it. Let me do this every day. And so I started to practice on myself. And then my friend decided that she was considering teaching it. And so I became her pupil. And so she taught me level 1 and level 2. Mastery is still on the horizon. I just haven't done it yet. And then it was like, well, I'm an admin by heart, and I love people. And healing work is like you said earlier, people, you being healed, you want everybody to be healed. And I tell my partner all the time now, I wish I could just magically turn into a fairy and just like hit people and like, you're healed, you're healed, you're healed. Because we know the power of healing. And that's why my business is called Empowered Souls, because I want to make sure that I'm empowering people to be healed enough that they can create and live the lives that they truly desire. Because I got healed. I was healed. And I know the power of that healing. And if you can be healed too, how much easier can your life be? Yeah, we live in this world that has a lot of weight to it. But if we navigate it and not allow it to crush us, but we can just manage our expectations and manage how we navigate this world, we can live better and be in community better. And one thing that I was looking at during COVID, especially here, was how people were becoming more community minded and less wanting to be reliant on the state, and more of us as community looking after each other. And we're still doing it because the state can't get their minds together to give us, the resources so we can live. But we as the people are piecing it together. And so that is important to my work of healing, is that you heal so that you can, be that whoever you came here to be. And it's amazing to work with people, and then to love on people when they're becoming parents, because I realized the tribe that I had, even through all of the muck and mire of having a horrible part husband, my mom and my sister-in-law and my mother's cousin, they were the ones to lift me up and keep me going during my, postpartum and parenting journey. And so if I can hold space for someone during their first weeks and months into parenting, how successful they can be, and allow them to, again, be empowered to have the parenting style and, they want to have with their child, and how we can break some of these generational curses and generational things, like, childhood traumas, so that they can't pass it on to their children, and we become the ones that, breaking those chains.
Right. And I love that you say, that you really want to empower others to live the lives that they truly desire. And that's really honestly the main purpose of this series, because I want people who are either struggling in an abusive relationship, people that know others that are in an abusive relationship, or that have come out of an abusive relationship and haven't gone through the healing process yet, to understand that there truly is the possibility for an amazing life. Because as someone who, I attempted suicide because of the abuse, and I was really hopeless, absolutely hopeless. I kept thinking to myself, what is the point? Why even bother?
Yes.
Why go on? And and I know there's a lot of people out there that are feeling the same way. And one of the things that I really wanted to do is I wanted to talk to people who have come out of these relationships, who have created amazing lives for themselves, so that other people can see that there is hope.
Yes.
And that's why I'm calling this series Messages of Hope, because I want people to understand that, there really is amazing things out there, and it's available for everybody, and that everybody deserves it.
That's right. And I feel that's me too, because I mean, it was time, when I had my last daughter, that was probably the most depressed I was with all three of my kids. And it was times that I was just like, how am I going to do this? I was 21 with 3 kids, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an infant. Who does that? Who can survive that? And, with somebody who is treating you like crap. And I'm here today. It hasn't been all bad. It wasn't always sunshine and roses. It's been, a chore. And my mom just recently passed, and I was still living in the house that I had stayed in that house for another 15 years. And that house still held a lot of trauma for all 4 of us. Mm-hmm. And then when we moved into this house, I had to heal from the trauma of living here and my mom not being here. You know, this is my childhood home and we got to change it a little bit, but it still is her heart and soul. But, you know, I'm 42 and who would have thought? I sometimes I do, I think about it and I'm just like, I can't even fathom that I came out of it. And I have my youngest daughter, her godmother constantly reminds me to celebrate that I've been freed of it and reminds me all the time of how proud she is of me, of just surviving and thriving. And not that I did anything magical, but that I just kept going. And, you know, I want people to keep going just a little bit and to heal from that. And I think it's good, Crystal, this message of hope is so good because people can just, if we can just hear that one message to spark the light, you know, this is so amazing. I'm grateful for you to give us all this platform to share because one person, if just one person can be healed and can get free, you've done it, you know, because it starts that ripple effect. And I think it's going to be more than one person, but definitely just one person. It's going to touch many. I feel that, and I accept that for this, is that it's going to be many that not only leave, but are also healed from this, you know.
Well, I truly appreciate your time today.
You're welcome.
So much for sharing your story.
Yes.
And for doing the work that you do, because, you know, you're truly creating a difference in the world. And, you know, you're a light and, you know, I really appreciate you. And
thank you.
So
thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So anybody that's watching, again, you know, I will share Mel's information in the description and in the link comments, so you can find out more information about her and the work that she does. You know, if you're struggling and you need someone to help with, then I'm sure she can be a tremendously beneficial resource for you. So I really, you know, recommend that you know, check out her information, follow her on social media. And, you know, if you're finding these videos to be beneficial, you know, we're planning on having more coming out. So, you know, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more content, and share with everybody, because everybody needs to hear these messages. They need to understand that this is a really big problem, and it's not just a problem that's isolated to the few people that you might know. It's a worldwide problem, and more people need to get involved, and more people need to do, you know, their part to help with the healing. So again, Mel, thank you so much for being with us today, and, you know, for sharing your message. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Crystal. You have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Stop recording now.